I've had some colossal failures where in the midst of it, you think that there's no hope. You lose sleep, you're pacing back and forth. You think it's the end of the world. And a lot of times physiologically, like we feel like we're physically sick or that we're going to die. Our bodies respond to things that way. But if you push through to the other side, like right now, I love real estate because you don't have to have a doctorate to get in the game. You don't have to have a high school diploma to get into the game, but you do need to be persistent and consistent to do it. But you don't need to be a genius. You just have to be able to work. And as you work, if you take market feedback from quote unquote failures that you get and you adjust how you're playing the game, like you get better and better.
Jake, thanks for joining me on our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host, Matt Camp, head of partnerships over here at DealMachine. And on these, we shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories, and really educate our audience on how you see the world evolving. So I'm really, really excited to welcome on Jake Leicht today. You're an active real estate investor for over 12 years now, flipped nearly 1,000 properties using other people's money 100%. So we'll dig into that. And you might know him from social media already. I mean, you've got over 700,000 followers on Instagram. Pretty wild to say, that right now. So by the time this is published, who even knows? You're the CEO of Flip Secrets as well, which is your online community, and you're really teaching others to do what you do in terms of flipping houses. And you've had over 1,000 flips from your members, right? Too.
Yeah, multiple
That you
thousands.
know about. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Love that. So welcome on, Jake. Really excited to have you on, man.
Matt, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And with that intro, it's like introspection. We've come a long way here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. So speaking of that, like I'd love to dig in your story. I mean, you've told me a little bit about, you've had this kind of inspirational, almost, rags to riches type story, and just quite an entrepreneurial journey. And I'd love to hear about that and how you got into real estate to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a road of some technique and some brute force, but I've made it. I've had the ups and downs and the lefts and the rights, and it hasn't at times been pretty. But we've made it here, and show no signs of stopping. But yeah, the rags to riches story. You hear a lot of that kind of stuff, especially in real estate, because it provides such a good opportunity. But yeah, I grew up Stockton, California, like not necessarily a great environment, lower middle class. Didn't have real estate or entrepreneurship in my family, blue collar family. My parents were together. I played sports. The goal of playing sports was to stay out of trouble so I could get to college and kind of make it out of that environment. And we achieved that goal. And I went to college. I swam and played water polo in college. And that's my claim to fame there. The dude in the Speedo. But because I swam and played sports year round, I never had a job. And then I got this business degree, and I didn't go to class much. I did my tests and did all nighters for tests, and got out of college with a business degree. And everybody was doing interviews, and I didn't have any experience. And so there was this company that took college athletes and had us put sports stuff like communication and leadership and teamwork and insert keyword here, and prepare for interviews to be able to use sports as my background. So I did that. Started getting job offers, ended up being a sales guy for an IT company for about 5 years. Company got bought out. The dudes that were mentoring me, which at the time, I was 24, 25 at the time. They're about 10 years older than me, made a tremendous amount of money, taught me a ton about being an adult in general. But they got paid, and the new company came in and said, "Hey, Jake, you're doing a great job. We know you're young, but we want to keep you in a key role here, but we're going to pay you less and reduce your commission, but you're going to be great." And right around the same time, once I saw these guys putting themselves in position to get a real big paycheck, right around the same time, I watched the movie The Secret, which is like law of attraction. Think happy thoughts, and you'll attract happiness into your life. And around the same time, I also read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Oh yeah,
which is like, hey, you can delegate and leverage and work 4 hours a week. So in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna become an entrepreneur. Think happy thoughts, work 4 hours a week, and I'll become a millionaire. Right? Like that was my goal. And so I quit this job and I started my first business. And within 6 months, I lost everything that I had. The little amount that I had saved up. That is my like entrepreneurial origin story. Right around the same time, I met a girl. Like 2 weeks after I quit this job, met a girl. We were dating, and like I felt real strongly about her. And all she knew was, oh, he took such bold action. He's an entrepreneur. But nobody knew I was an entrepreneur that was bleeding money. Started a VA company of all companies. I didn't really know what to do. I thought, think happy thoughts, delegate, and, millions will come in. And so, I realized there was a month, it was 6 months in, I realized that after I paid that month's expenses, I wouldn't be able to afford my $940 mortgage payment on a house that I bought in 2009 for like 140 grand. By the way, I own it as a rental now. It's worth like four
Nice.
times as much. But, you know, I, uh, I was just in this spot where I was like writing a failure plan. I didn't know what foreclosure meant. I had a car payment, I had utility, phone payment and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, it hit me. I was like, I'm going to have to go get a job. And I was writing out a failure plan. And as a law of attraction type person, like I would never recommend anyone watching this to draw out and like plan for failure. But I did that. And when I was looking up foreclosure, like trying to see, okay, how long, like if I don't pay my mortgage next month, how long before they take the house? What happens when they do that? And I saw in like Zillow or Trulia or Redfin or one of those free sites that they have those rental estimates. And I was paying approximately 950 bucks a month, and I couldn't afford that. I had like 700 in my bank account, so I had to pay. Had to be
Mhm.
split up amongst different things. And so I saw the rental stuff, and I could rent that house out for between 14 to 1500 bucks. Like we had model matches around the area, so I was like, oh wait, so I can let someone else live here. I would still have to find a couch to stay on, but I would make 500 bucks a month just letting someone pay rent, and I would take whatever's on top of that. I have a college degree. I did, I didn't necessarily pay much attention in college, but nobody had ever taught me that. And so I
Mhm.
started looking this up, and I saw the stat over and over and over again that 90% or 85%, 92%, but it was approximately 90% of self-made millionaires created their wealth through real estate investing. I just saw that over and over and over again. And at first I was pissed because it was like, I am hustling, grinding my face off. I was relentless, like putting all the work in, just staying up all day trying to grow this business. And it was the wrong vehicle. I was like, nobody told me this. I never realized this. Like I felt kind of cheated. But that's when real estate came on my radar. Like I owned a house and really still didn't know how it worked. So like 2 days later, I was trying to get customers with this VA business, trying to keep myself afloat. And someone, I made a cold call. Someone was rude to me. I yelled at the lady. She yelled back. She like cussed me out. I cussed her out. And I hung up the phone and I turned my TV on, which is something I would never do during the day. And I did. And there was an infomercial for a Flip This House, A&E TV guy, HGTV
Mhm.
shows. And he was like, you can flip houses in today's market without a dime out of your own pocket. He had perfect teeth, slick back hair. It seemed like a pharmaceutical commercial with like
Right.
people, frolicking on the beach. And I'm like, well, I've always wanted to be a millionaire. I grew up watching MTV Cribs, like I liked watching those shows. And I knew I had to be self-made because we didn't have any family in our money. I had supportive parents and stuff like that. And so at the end of this infomercial, they were selling a free book, a free plus shipping book. I bought it. They overnighted it to me. I'm an audiobook guy. I don't read a ton because my attention goes all over the place. But I consumed that book in like a day and a half. And it was like stories about how people were doing it. And I had this belief and I had a little bit of knowledge about flipping houses and using private money, other people's money to do it. And that like it changed me, right? I was like, I have belief I can do this. I need to figure out. And like clockwork, I got a cold call from someone with their company who invited me to a seminar a couple weeks later. I come from the seminar circuit. Like I believe in the education stuff. And this guy was, giving me these promises. Oh yeah, you'll make 100 grand in 90 days. And, all these great things that I wanted to hear. And he was like, we'd love to invite you to this seminar. It's an hour from where you live. I was in Southern California. It's like, it's September 21st. I was like, yeah, save me a spot. I don't got anything on my calendar. I was telling this guy, the whole time, I'm an entrepreneur, right? That was my identity. I didn't tell him I was broke. And at the end of the call, he's like, that'll be 15,500 bucks. I'm like, oh, I've got 700, and
Mhm.
so that rattled me a little bit. I tried to get him off the phone. I asked for references. He gave me references. I got off the phone with the guy, but I searched the references. I called them. He was smart with how he did it. He took young guys that also lived in Southern California that were having success. And I looked them
Mhm.
up on, Facebook. Facebook, a little bit different of a beast back in 2011 than it is now.
For
But
sure.
I found these guys, they're like pictures of them at their projects and so forth. They were real people. And I called both of them. Both of them took time to talk to me and talked about how their lives had changed. And I was hooked. And so, so this girl that I was dating, she believed in me and believed in me more than I believed in myself. And she's like, Jake, is this real estate thing? Like, is this it? And I thought she was breaking up with me. And I'm like madly in love with this girl. I was like, no, like tails between my legs because the VA thing was it. And, she saw it crash and burn, or she saw it in the process of crashing and burning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I think so. And, I thought it was it. Inside, everything said like, oh, let's pivot to real estate now. But I didn't want to sound like one of these drifters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, yeah, it seems pretty interesting, like this real estate thing, trying to keep it buttoned up. And she's like, Jake, shut up. Like, you're not a moderation type of dude. Is this it? Like, is this the thing? And, tail between my legs, I'm like, yeah, it is. She's like, I'm gonna call you back. And so she hung up the phone. It seemed like it was a full day. It ended up being like 30 minutes. And she called me back, and she's like, she's from Washington, Northern Washington, Bellingham. She's like, I called this girl that I went to high school with. She's a manager at the credit union that my credit card is with. I extended the limit on my credit card to 10 grand. I'm co-signing with you on 2 credit cards, and you're gonna go into that seminar. And so I was like,
wow.
Yeah. So that was it. 2 weeks later, now I have debt, right? Like debt and the pressure of like not having any money. She had a job. She's a physical therapist, but a brand new physical therapist at that. But I went to this seminar, learned for like a day and a half. Like they brought us on buses to like look at how this is what the houses look like. Here's how you do an after repair value, and then they would just push the stage with people that changed their lives, like these emotional testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
And it was perfect for what I needed because like I have a little bit of structure. I have belief. Like I could identify. They brought every type of person on stage, young people, old people, like crazy stories. It's like I identify with a couple people there. I can do this. Like this is going to be me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the marketplace. I made 272 offers that were all rejected, and some of them I was laughed out of the room. They were like, "Hey, we're asking 300 grand for this house. Your client said they were bringing a strong cash offer, and to wait for it, they would tell my agent this, who was a good buddy of mine. And he came in with $120,000 offer. We have 5 offers over asking. This isn't a distressed house. And we're like, yeah, but it's cash. And they're like, not only are we rejecting this, but tell your client if he ever offers on any listing that I have, I'll make sure that like I was getting threats because they were just ridiculous offers. It's funny right now, but at the time I was just like, oh gosh, this is cutthroat. Oh my gosh. But I just kept going. I started sending a couple offers a day, 5 offers a day, 10 offers a day, just all local to Southern California. And then it was like 45 days later, I got a call back, say, hey, that house in Hemet on Ida Lane, they accepted your offer. I'm going to have the contract to you soon. And I remember like I spent every waking moment of my day for 45 days, like only focusing on this, right? Not only did I have to make it work, but my girlfriend had her credit card on it,
Yep.
And I felt like I had to throw up and like everything associated with the flu at one time. That's what I felt like. So I got the dude off the phone. I was like, let me call you back. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, could I just leave the country or flee the state? Like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm broke. Is this going to work? Like this internal dialogue just haunted me. And so I went for a run. That's something that I learned from a book that I read, Morning Miracle. You ever read that book?
Is that Hal Elrod?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so anytime I would get frustrated with stuff, I would try to go for a run, and that would help me. Like it would get my mind clear. So I'm running down the road and listening to some gangster rap. I think Dr. Dre, Chronic 2001. I'm running down the road and like a mile into it, like it seemed like every step I was like, what are you doing? Why are you second guessing yourself? And so I stopped on the side of the road. I think I had a BlackBerry at the time. I'm dating myself. But I called the guy back. I was like, hey, sorry about that. He's like, are you in the middle of traffic? I'm like, oh yeah, just outside. Don't worry about that. But hey, thanks for the update. Are we getting the contract tonight? Like, it's go time. And I just had to figure it out on the fly. I knew that there were lenders out there that would fund people's deals if the numbers were right. I knew that if anything, I understood an after repair value and what I could resell a property for. I was really like strict with myself on that. So the numbers were solid on the deal. And I started like sniping people and blowing people up from Facebook groups until they would call me back. And I've been in Southern California, like 25, 26 years old. There's a guy that's twice my age in Detroit, Michigan, who took my call. Him and a buddy of his funded the deal 100% and padded it by $5,000 because I told him I was broke. I didn't have to live off my girlfriend's paycheck. And yeah, I flipped the house. It took like just over 90 days, flipped the house, had 38 grand in net profit in my bank account,
Wow.
true 100% private lender like structure. And that's when it was on. And by the way, if you have less than $1,000 balance in your bank account and all of a sudden you have 38 grand, they hold the check. I learned that too. So yeah, that's how I started. In my first year, I think I flipped like 6 houses. I stayed consistent, got better and better.
Mhm.
Not a rocket scientist, but I was consistent. That was the one thing. And so the first year I made like 120, 130 grand. Second year I was, doing it more and everything all over Southern California. That's how it started.
Yeah, that's a crazy story, man. I mean, I think like one thing that you can kind of pinpoint throughout this that I know from talking to you before as well, like just your mindset on things and how
Mhm.
you uh, even in a scary situation and things that you're like, yeah, you just got to get out there and got to get it done. Like, can you tell us more on how people can respond to failure? For newbies going through that journey themselves, like how they should put that mindset of not being scared of failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And side note, like I have some big failures that actually created the investor that I became, and we'll
Hmm.
talk about them. But yeah, I think that, and I'm lucky I played sports, right? In sports, there's a
Hmm.
lot of failure and there's a lot of work you have to do. And swimming, I'd be training before school and after school, like 4 to 5 hours a day, 6 days a week, and sometimes on Sunday mornings too.
Hmm.
And it was to shave like a half second off of a time, like after 6 months of, you know,
Hmm.
25 hours a week of training. So I was lucky with that because I learned how to lose quite a bit in swimming. Like there was a time I beat Michael Phelps at one point when I was young, and
Wow.
actually he wasn't, the beast that he is, but he was still fast. I was a top swimmer, but I lost a lot of races. I
Hmm.
was second and third place, and you kind of learn to deal with that. But one thing that I saw that translated over to business, and I still realize this stuff every day. Like there's a new epiphany that I get even now, 13 years later into this game, is that failure teaches more lessons than successes do. Like success is good. You want to create momentum. In no way am I saying that you want to fail, but like adversity, I constantly find because I'm lucky enough to teach this stuff. So I have other people that are on that first leg of their journey all the time. And with a lot of people, the first sign of adversity, right? They get punched in the mouth, so to speak. They want to lay down for the count. And a lot of times going through like a blip or something that goes imperfectly, like you put a deal under contract and your numbers are off, so you have to back out, or you put a deal under contract and your numbers are good, but you can't put the lenders together, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people are, I hate to say this, but a lot of society right now is really, really soft. Where the first sign of things going imperfectly, they back out and they'll say, I can't do this. They'll blame themselves. They'll blame something external. They'll blame me. Oh, you're a scam. If I'm involved in teaching them, or so and so didn't do this correctly, or so and so didn't do this correctly. And I found, and I'm a good example of this. Like, it's not the smartest person that wins at this game. It's the person that doesn't quit. You take failure, and it's feedback from. I call it flipping the game, right? And partially because I don't want to get too pissed and think it's a fight and I'm trying to punch someone, but it's a game, right? You have to play it, and you look at video games, which I'm not a gamer, but with video, I did play Nintendo when I was a kid. Like you die on a level, you start the level over, but you probably get a little bit further, and so I think consistency is really important. I think taking quote unquote failure as the game, just giving us feedback on what to do and giving us an opportunity to change. Like if you view it from that context, the game can help you grow by punching you in the face a couple of times,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like you do something wrong and you can't get a lender, you don't quit the business on your first rep. It's like you try it again, but if you make a mistake, it isolates what you need to work on. It can give you very, very good market feedback for you to get better and better. And my career, that's what my career has been. Like I've had a lot of successes, but because of the failures that I had, and we can talk about other ones as like the story grows. I've had some colossal failures where in the midst of it, you think that there's no hope. You lose sleep, you're pacing back and forth, you think it's the end of the world. And a lot of times physiologically, like we feel like we're physically sick or that we're going to die. Our bodies respond to things that way.
Hmm.
But if you push through to the other side, like right now, I love real estate because you don't have to have a doctorate to get in the game. You don't have to have a high school diploma to get into the game, but you do need to be persistent and consistent to do it. But you don't need to be a genius. You just have
Hmm.
to be able to work. And as you work, if you take market feedback from quote unquote failures that you get and you adjust how you're playing the game, like you get better and better. So it's just a matter of like staying consistent. And I know like right now it's a it's a hot word. Like it's one of those overused words. It's like, hey, it's not about the end destination, it's the journey. But looking back on the career, like you talk about, oh, you flipped this many houses. Like, yeah, but the failures are the reason that it catapulted me up to being in a
Hmm.
different level of the business as I've gone. So I
Absolutely.
think I think most people see failure as the end all be all, and I think the ones that thrive, that top 1% of investors, they look for that failure because like, what can I change? What can I
Yeah.
do differently with how I'm approaching the game?
Yeah, I love you bring up sports as well. I mean, we've had plenty of athletes on here. It seems to translate pretty well into this space, and it's something. I mean, I think my work ethic, a big part of it is from playing sports growing up too. So,
What did you
um,
play?
I did football, wrestling. Those were my main two. Tennis, quite a bit too. Main three in high school and
Yeah.
whatnot. Some of those, I mean, wrestling's crazy hard. Like a lot of them is just you're going to go and whether it's a team sport or individual sport, you got to battle through adversity and
Mhm.
there's so many lessons. But I think the work ethic piece, a big part of it's from that. So.
Yeah, yeah. When you swim, I was quote, I'm a jock, right? But as a swimmer, we were friends with the other sports teams, high school, college. Like football players would be like, "You're a swimmer, dude." Like you're wearing they kind of, we make fun of each other and so forth. But I've always thought, and swimming's hard, and not only because you're by yourself, but your head's in the water. You can't talk to anybody. You're just
Mhm.
focusing on your breathing. Like there's so many instrumental beats that are in my head for the rest of my life because of swimming. But I always thought that wrestlers
Mhm.
understood like if you can be a wrestler and not quit, there's a lot of stuff up here and like cutting weight and like
Oh yeah.
doing extra cardio, wearing that sweatsuit,
Oh yeah. In there. Yeah.
like a lot of, and I'm sure, like you were saying, like it translates to your business because the self dialogue is so important. Like when
Mhm.
you want to give up or you're too tired, like how we talk to ourselves plays a huge role in that.
Love that you lay out that story for people. I think it's super encouraging for people, especially the ones kind of going through it and trying to do that first deal and really break the seal and kind of break through for that first time. You talked about a couple of hardships. You just mentioning that a couple of hardships you went through to really learn those lessons. One thing that I found also really inspiring was kind of how you've evolved working those flips, like how you've worked, even how you work with your contractors, and really have transitioned to kind of this more hands-off approach to flipping. Can you talk about that aha moment and how you really avoid micromanaging now and really your whole philosophy around it, how that's evolved?
We'll go back, right? Go back to 2012, got the first flip. And that first year, I'm kind of doing the same thing, just a lot of like I'm muscling through it and learning on the fly and kind of adapting, getting better and better and better. But I, I remember I would I didn't have a coach in that with that seminar company, but I felt like I needed to talk to someone. So I would go to these local meetup groups like meetup.com. You see like real estate
Mhm.
investor club that meets every third Wednesday or whatever. So I would go to as many of those as possible. And the interesting side note, the interesting part about that is I had done one flip and 90% of the people in there, they were like, you have experience. And they were coming to me for help. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm the guy that would give help. But the context of how many people wanted to get in the business, but they were just like, and
Mhm.
usually it was like they were just scared to take action. Like there was something that was holding them back. So that was interesting in itself. But those top 10% people that were at those meetups, it was usually old guys and old girls that drove like a nice car, they dressed nice, and they got a kick out of going to those meetings. But one thing that I was seeing over and over with like the old guard of real estate investing, and this was, again in 2012, they were all like they owned brokerages, right? They were real estate agents. They had their, contractors on payroll, right? And they had a ton of money and they were funding their own deals. And so that was my exposure at the time. And so my thought, and I had zero experience with construction. Like my family members own auto body shops and stuff like that. Like these hands type on a keyboard or swim, right? Like they're
Mhm.
soft. And it just, putting cars together and that kind of stuff never stuck with me. Going and hanging drywall, it wasn't something I knew how to do. And so I was getting these flips. They were local or somewhat local. They're within an hour and a half of where I would live. And so I would, every day or every evening, I'd put kind of a schedule together because I was still looking at properties. And my day was consumed driving all over Southern California, going to the house, talking to the contractor every day, talking about the game plan, making
Mhm.
a Home Depot run for them, picking up whatever supplies they needed. It's like, yeah, let me do that. I'm a man of the people. I would go and meet with new real estate agents at Starbucks, and they'd want to tell me about how their firm is the best and sign this exclusivity agreement with us. Which, by the way, don't do that. But I really enjoyed going out there and micromanaging every aspect of the process, doing everything in person, because I felt like that was going to put me from the position I was in to the position where the old guard was, where they had
Mhm.
this nice watch and the nice car, and they're going to these meetup groups and just kind of getting a kick out of all the young people trying to get into it. And so that was my idea of what success was. So I was micromanaging every aspect of the flips, and they were working out. But I was spending, 12 to 15 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, just being on site, getting new properties, making new offers. I'd come home exhausted. Uh, Me and that girl got married. That's my wife. That wasn't just a girlfriend. We got 3 kids and all that kind of fun stuff. Shout out Carlene. What's going on? But we would get home. We would both have a hard day at work. We're living the American dream. Like we're creating for ourselves. And so we get home, maybe have a glass of wine and like talk a little bit, and then go to bed and do it again. Excuse me, do it again the next day. And in on April 6, 2013, we had our day off, and we went to like a friend's kid's birthday party at a park. I remember it very clearly. And it's like birds chirping, like we're having a good day. We're maybe thinking about having kids someday, right? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We got back to the car. My wife left her phone in the car, and she had like 15 missed calls from a Washington area code. And she finally got in touch with the messages were cryptic, but they were from like the sheriff's office. So we found out that day that her dad, my father-in-law, was shot and killed. He was shot 5 times in the back on a property line dispute. And it turned our world upside down. Like we took a flight out to Washington the next day. I wasn't even thinking about our real estate business and how everybody expected me to be there on site. Like, yeah, what's the game plan? 2 hours later, what's the game plan now? It's like, Jake, it's the same thing as it was 2 hours ago. They're still installing cabinets, dude. But I went from that to all of a sudden finding myself in another state with no control over my flips, dealing with media, district attorney, funeral arrangements, like family grief, and it rocked my world. But these flips were going, and I was in the driver's seat. I was the CEO of the business, and so I remember I called everybody that was involved with these flips, which is lenders, real estate agents, and contractors. I said, "Here's what happened," and they knew me well. I was around them all the time. And like, oh my God, like we got it. I was like, hey, lender, I need you to talk to contractor, real estate agent. Please make sure you check in with lender. Like this triangle. Like, yep,
Mhm.
y'all are my power team. So please, like, help me keep this afloat. I don't know when I'm coming back. And so my 60 hours a week being on site overnight turned into like a Friday call with everyone on the line for a half hour. And I would text here and there. And they didn't want to bother me. Like it was a pretty traumatic experience that we went
Yeah.
through. And so, from 60 hours a week to about a half hour a week. And I didn't know what I was going to deal with. I really wasn't thinking about it a ton. But 4 or 5 weeks later, we came back, making sure my wife's good. And like we started going back to work. I started going back to the properties, catch up on mail that was sent to the house, and started getting back into it. And things had gone well. Like there was no hiccups or anything. I was gone for a month maybe. Um, and 6 weeks to the day later, I got a call from my brother that my dad had a heart attack and passed away. And like I am named after my dad. I'm Junior. It was hard. I had a good relate. He was one of the few people in my life that was like, go for your dreams, Jake. Like, don't play it safe. Like, and so it rattled my world. And it was
Mhm.
weird because the next day I found myself on a flight taking care of, no, not like the district attorney or prosecutors or anything like that or media, but I'm dealing with grieving as the firstborn son, losing my dad. That was supportive of me. So it was like the same thing again with a contractor, real estate agent, lenders, and this time I was like you guys need to handle it. Here's what I need you to talk with contractor about. Here's when I need you to check in. Real estate agent, I need you to be my eyes and ears. Here's what I need you to do at this cadence. And it was a tough time. It was a pretty dark time for me. I had to grow up quick, and I'm proudly the most immature dude I've ever met. And suddenly I had to become a little bit more mature. Rattled me to the core. And then I came back, and it was about a month later, and things were excellent. Nothing had messed up. Nobody was fired. I gave my real estate agent like full authority to fire people. I'd let the lender know he could fire the contractor. Let me know. Just let me know what happens if something big comes to fruition. But like, please handle this. And things were ahead of schedule. A few of those flips were just ready to be listed. Some of them were pre-marketed already because I hadn't signed listing agreements. There's buyers already ready for them, but everything had gone smoother. And the only thing, getting back, like, I think I've told you this before, I may be dumb, a little immature, I have the maturity level of a 17-year-old proudly, but it's like, I may be dumb, but I ain't stupid. Like the only thing that was removed from this equation was me and me micromanaging and going and being a bottleneck, if you will. And so I realized that, and I immediately stopped going on site to the flips, and I started running that process that I had been forced to learn, right? Where it's like, I'm not in full control, but I'm like focusing on communication and delegation. I ran that, I put it all on a piece of paper. Like, here's what we do. Here's how I'm talking to people. And I started doing it in other areas. And I started like 400 or 500 miles away from where I live. Because in my mind, I was like, well, if something happens, I can get on a flight and get there in a couple hours. And that's when things really took off. That's where it went from, a property every 6 weeks that we would acquire to like a couple of them a month. And I could turn it up or down as much as I wanted to because I didn't have to be there.
Right.
And that's like, I was forced to learn that you need to have a system. Your numbers need to be on point over everything. Numbers need to make sense. But focusing on communication and setting expectations in a way that's maybe a little bit assertive, but as long as everybody knows what to do from the beginning, rather than telling them your expectations as the project, kind of goes along. Like
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, right? Nothing's perfect, but for the most part, like that's what really took things to the next level.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I went to like the second half of that year. We acquired 18 properties to flip, and then I started like getting in with banks or private equity funds where they were selling like off selling 100 properties at a time.
Right.
Like just as they are, you have to assume the back taxes and everything, but they'd be selling them for $3,000 a pop, $5,000 a pop. And that's when things got real interesting. I had a partner who was actually my very first real estate agent, and we started buying 100 at a time and then keeping some of them to flip, off selling them to, wholesalers in different areas. And all of a sudden real money was coming through. And from a kid that, 18, 24 months before that had $700 in their bank account, uh,
A wild ride.
yeah, there was a description in the 4 Hour Work Week called the new rich,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where it's like people that didn't really understand how to handle. I didn't understand how to handle it, and so I didn't go buy fancy. I'm not a fancy things type of dude, but I wanted to start reinvesting into stuff. Like we lived the same way that we lived, and I remember I got partial private money for a portfolio of like 120 houses. And then I used a lot of my wife and I's money. I don't know if that's how you say it. Me and my wife's money.
That
So
works.
I'm not a rocket scientist. But we did that. And this deal was like, we got suckered into a deal. I didn't do the due diligence that I should have. I thought that anything I would do, I all of a sudden thought it was easy and I didn't have to have a system to it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of those situations where I got metaphorically punched in the mouth. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was hundreds of thousands of dollars, not millions, but hundreds of thousands that I didn't have because I put money into the deal and that I didn't have to pay these lenders back. And that's when things got interesting. Like I spent a year trying to figure out how to save this deal. Like it's all I focused on. I would always tell my wife, like, "Hey, what we're gonna, we'll get this taken care of. Like, don't worry, I've got a plan." I was working my butt off to do it. And there finally was a day where it was like, there's nothing I can do with this. Like, even if I try to take every single property and flip them, the back taxes and everything, that's like, they're underwater.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I remember this is another situation. I knew exactly where I was. We're taking a walk. We would take a walk in the evening once we'd be done with work. My wife and I was like, hey, that deal, like, doesn't look like it's coming back. And I thought she was going to leave me. Like, I had all these things. My internal dialogue wasn't really on point. And she was like, Jake, like, do you have a plan? I was like, well, I've been trying to execute the plan for about a year here. And, this is where we're at. And she's like, I don't care if we lose it all because it was both of our money. I don't care if we lose it all. As long as you have a plan, And even if the plan doesn't work, as long as you have a plan, as long as you don't roll over, like, we're good. I remember that was the weight of the world coming off my
Hmm.
shoulders. And that moment, I mean, there's a big lead up to that moment. This is me 3 years into the business. That moment is where I went from being, I'm going to try to be humble, but that's where I was like I became dangerous because I wasn't worried about like fear of failure or anything like that. It's like I just got through. I can do some real estate deals to get that money back. I can negotiate with these lenders, make sure they're paid back in full. And when that happened and I went through that failure, and it was a lot of people knew about it. It was a spectacular failure. I didn't hide. Sometimes I see investors when a deal goes south, like,
Hmm.
they don't talk to their lenders or they try to run away. And by me paying every dime back over the course of about a year, um, once I got back to flipping houses, 100% other people's, I didn't have money again. I went back to stacking houses, flipping them with that same system in numerous areas. And I made that money back and then some way faster than I had before that. And that's when everything changed.
Yeah.
Like that's when the dents started being made. But I had to
Mhm.
go through that colossal failure to realize my biggest fear wouldn't kill me. And as long as I stayed in the game and kept playing, like switching to offense rather than having a fear of like how I would defend in a hypothetical failure.
Mhm.
Like it's like, hey, I got through failure. That's like the biggest failure I can think of. So,
No
now it's
kidding, man.
game. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to
Weird,
hear
right?
how. Yeah, I was gonna say it's awesome to hear, even like your partnership with you and your wife and how your inner workings of that. Like that's incredible when you find a partner like that.
Yeah, it's
You
a cheat code. It's
know. Mhm.
definitely like it. You're talking about the game, right? But it helps me so much. She's ride or die. Like she'll build me up when I'm feeling down. I feel down a lot. It's when you're in business and growing. Like there's
Yeah,
pressure.
entrepreneurship.
Like you
Yeah,
know it, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say it's a a roller coaster ride for as being an entrepreneur, but that's what makes it fun too. So it's
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
agree. So
Um,
that was it, man. I got on the radar of some of these seminar companies that I had learned with, and they brought me in as a
mhm,
coach and a speaker and help write curriculum. And I realized it's like, oh, I'm doing something different that like I thought it was normal,
mhm,
um, outside of that big failure. And then I started talking about how I built my portfolio up and got my momentum, and other people were like, oh, well, first off, this dude is wearing Chuck Taylors on stage where the other guys are wearing suits. Like he's a little different. He's younger than everybody, and he talks a little bit different, right? It's not as
mhm.
buttoned up. I'm a little rough around the edges, and that's fine. But I
Ooh,
started teaching that to other people and
mhm.
seeing the light turn on, and that's like there's to be honest, like from a selfish standpoint, there's no better feeling than helping someone get an aha moment when it comes to that
Yep,
kind of stuff.
yep. I love it. I mean, I can see your passion for you helping people. I mean, that obviously shines through as well with your guys' track record on the education side of how many people you've
Yeah,
helped through this as well. So,
I
um,
appreciate that, Matt. I appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. So man, we might have to do a follow up someday at some point then too, because there's so many areas I would love to dig into with you, but I know we only got a few more minutes left. Last thing I want to make sure I hit on, just because you emphasized this a few times, and I know we only have a few minutes to dig into this, so this might be a follow up as well. But the whole idea about, like you said, you got to know your numbers. That's so important to know your
Hmm.
numbers. You guys, I mean, I've downloaded it myself and checked it out. I know you guys have an awesome flipping calculator, which
Yeah.
I'll link to as well
Yep.
in the description here. If anyone wants to grab that, it's free and all that. But how in terms of running the numbers, how do you kind of think about deal analysis? Do you have any few minute
Yeah.
pointers you can give in terms of like for newbies especially how they should be thinking about this?
So I look at a deal, I reverse engineer a deal, right? The most important thing is the after repair value, regardless of whether you're wholesaling, you're doing a BRRR or doing a
Mhm,
flip or even doing a whole tail, which is like you're not really doing rehab, you just kind of relist it on the market.
mhm,
Fun word. I just learned this word last year. But like when you start on a deal, you have to have a solid after repair value. Your comps need to be on point.
mhm,
But once you get that, if you reverse engineer, like a solid after repair value, not only lets you know what, if you're flipping a house, lets you know what you need to do to it, tells you what the days on market are probably going to be. It helps you
mhm,
avoid over improving, as far as renovation is concerned. But that's what unlocks everything to lenders, right?
mhm,
Hard money lender, or once you're at the end of the project, it unlocks the door to be able to refi, hold something as a rental. Like that future value of the property needs to be on point. And what I learned, and I'm finding out more and more still every day, is that most people think that they still need to cover the down payment themselves. And that's a big limiting false belief pattern about people that are just getting into the game. Like where I was when I first started, it's like I wanted to do it, but I didn't have the money. Like, what am I going to do? But we call them gap funders, and they're
Mhm.
folks that will partner with you, oftentimes with a second position lien on a property, a second
Mhm.
position mortgage, or whatever you want to call it, based on where you're at, where they'll come and give you your down payment. They'll give you holding costs, closing costs if you need them, and maybe even 6 months of interest payments. And that's covered by the second, that's what would come out of your own pocket. So if
Mhm.
you have a combination of two different lenders, and a hard money lender, if you're doing a flip, that's generally who somebody's using, or purely private lender, even typically they have those cutoffs with how much they'll give you. But if you have a network of second position lenders or people that want to partner up, they may have more money than time, whereas you may have more time than money. They can get in on your deal. And if the numbers are good, that lender gets paid back interest, like
Mhm.
an accrued or deferred interest for
Mhm.
when you sell it. Then whatever's left on the meat on the bone at the end of the day, that's what you get to keep. And that's how I've structured all of my deals. I have the money to do the deals myself now. And I love bringing lenders in because I'd rather bring a lender in at 60 grand and pay them, instead of making 60 grand in profit, make 55 grand or 57 grand in profit, then put my own money into it and making 5 grand more. It's like, I like to leverage other people's resources, their
Mhm.
expertise, their intelligence, their networking abilities, but also other people's money. If you can do it like that, that's when I learned. I mean, it took my dad passing away, which sucks. This is the silver lining to it, though, is if I can, and I guess it goes back to the 4-hour work week with delegation. If I
Mhm.
can delegate and get people that are very good in those certain spots on that power team to come in and work together, and I just really like make sure my numbers are good. I run it through that calculator, and yeah, you link it below at the end. But yeah, as long as the numbers work, and you have enough for yourself at the end of the day, that keeps everyone protected. And most people don't know that there are billions of dollars in private money, OPM as we call it,
Mhm.
second position lenders that we call gap funders because they bridge that gap. That's just waiting for you to go network with those people and show them the deal that you have, and make sure that they stay protected by the deal. That's how I look at it. The after repair value, work backwards,
Mhm.
and that ARV, as long as you get it right and all the other numbers are in place, like you can structure a deal in 20 different ways and make a lot of money from it without putting your own resources into it. So that's what I enjoy doing. It's fun. You get to talk to people, you get to make people money, and do it over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, that gets me and all. I'm sure a ton of people watching this fired up on how to be thinking about this creatively, and I mean that's something we'll have to dig into. I know we're gonna have you on to lead one of our master classes. So if anyone's
Yeah.
a Deal Machine customer, you get invited to those. So we'll make sure that you cover that a little bit during that master class too. But man, this was amazing. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, just giving so much value to our audience. What's the best way to get people, if they want to get in touch with you? Obviously, you've got the Instagram stuff going on. Like, tell me every way that people can get involved with you.
Yeah. Instagram is probably where most of the action is, I guess. It's at
Mhm.
Jake Leicht, JakeLeicht. And then if you want to, pick up the calculator, look at all those numbers, how we lay them out, it's just a template that we put into literally every single deal. And it's not me. There's tons of people doing it.
Mhm.
We put a link together for your audience, which is theflipsecrets.com/deal machine. And they can
Perfect.
download it. There's a free training. I kind of take people through the entire process. I talk like this. It's not buttoned up, but
Great.
it's
Real. Yeah.
yeah, it's helped a lot of people, and I've been trying to perfect that calculator for about 8 years. I still use it every day. I mean, I get a deal that comes across my desk, goes in the calculator. If calculator says yes, then I'm moving on it. If it says no, I'm on to the next one. So I
Love it.
think I think
Love
your
it.
audience will get a lot of value out of that.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that we include that. We've got a few other free resources linked down below. But Jake, again, we'll have to have you back on. This was fantastic, man. So really appreciate your time.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you do, and giving people exposure to what this game is really all about. Real estate investing, I know there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but getting people stories and how they have their unique approaches, I think that's very
Mhm.
helpful in helping people understand that they can do it, right?
Yep.
Like someone like me can do it, or someone like some of your other guests can do it, like they can do it too. And we're all human. We all have that internal dialogue. So I think it's a great thing that you're doing and giving people exposure to what it's really all about, which it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
We go through
Totally.
our punches in the face, if you will.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I love that you bring up like 4 Hour Work Week. Rich Dad Poor Dad was another big one for me.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
couple books that were like game changers for me. So yeah, here to inspire people and want them to take action and get out there and make things happen. So thanks again for jumping on.
You got it, man. Appreciate
All
it.
right, and everyone watching is Matt Camp with Deal Machine. Get out there and happy deal finding.